edition of the Bullheaded Podcast. I'm your host, per usual, Sean Tyson, here with Zoo and Peebles. How you guys doing?
Doing well, man. Got to spend the weekend with my boy Zoo. Came in through Chicago, and we had our fantasy football draft. If we have time to mention it later, I did draft Travis Kelce. And if you are a fantasy football or just an NFL fan, I'm sure you heard the news today. So prayers up. Hopefully it doesn't look too bad, but you never know with knee injuries, man. Apparently walked out under his own power, but praying to God that Mahomes-Kelce stack will end up paying off for me. But, man, oh, man. It's the curse of fantasy football for me, man. Since COVID, I swear to God, man. Since COVID.
Yeah, man. Made a pit stop in Chi City, man. Chi City, a little pit stop, but then the flight back. Oh my lord, 6 a.m. flight. Got hit with a 3-hour delay on the flight, man. A 3-hour delay of my favorite airlines, Delta Airlines. My favorite.
Ooh,
my favorite let me down. I jinxed it.
Just like me with Kelce. I jinxed
it, man. I ride and die with Delta, but they did me dirty. Dirty little 3-hour difference. But then they give me some miles back, give me some points back. As a I'm sorry that our planes weren't working correctly. I'm just like, yo, come on.
I need the Chiefs to do that for me, man. I need the Chiefs to do some of that. Give me some compensation or something. I need a Patty Mahomes. I need a Patty Noah Gray, and I ain't starting him. Because we all know it's just going to be a bunch of slant routes and out passes out to MVS and just be like, all right, yak. Get the yak, man. It's Mahomes' bread and butter.
Yeah. That's very unfortunate about Kelce. Like you said, we're going to talk about that later, but hopefully it's not crippling to where the Chiefs will get off to a horrible start. Like I think Zeus said before podcast started, it is the Lions. So we're going to see how Kelce recovers. But right now, we're going to kind of get into a new segment I kind of wanted to put forth to you guys, and it's going to be around betting. So I'm going to give Zoo and Peebush a option of different types of bets that they are favoring and things like that. So Peebush, how about you start us off, and what is going to be your bet of the week, NFL wise?
Yeah. So I think going forward, I'm going to try and keep it consistent week to week. I think it just makes it more fun. I actually like to place these bets myself. Really got into it about 2 years ago. I think it's really fun to watch, especially if you're a red zone guy and you like just kind of seeing all the touchdowns scored, and that's an anytime touchdown parlays. And, I've kind of played with the number that you like to bet. I mean, obviously, you can throw this into one of your general parlays, whether you're kind of a money line guy, spread guy, player props. I do think that this can create a decent amount of value in your parlays, but when you kind of get three of them together, even if you're picking guys that are minus 100 to score, some of the guys that are going to be getting targets or carries in the red zone pretty much week in and week out. You put a couple of those together, you get some nice odds. So this week I'm looking at 3. I think it's not too far of a stretch, and usually depending on who you're picking, I do actually really like this type of betting segment. So the 3 guys that I'm looking at, we got CMC this week. He's playing against the Steelers. Obviously a tough front line on the Pittsburgh side that could, they're going to be out there to stop Christian McCaffrey, and everybody knows that. But as much as you might want to try, most do not succeed when it comes to stopping Christian McCaffrey, and they actually have priced that in a little bit, and he's actually plus 100 to score a touchdown this week. Pretty good odds for a guy that gets a lot of looks, and especially when you take into account his passing attack, right? They love to do checkdowns, little kind of triangle routes. The Alvin Kamara route is what I like to call it, out of the backfield, kind of a zigzag back into the center of the field. They love to use him in many ways. And I think that just based on target share alone, even though there are a lot of weapons in that offense, he is the pinnacle of their talent, him and Deebo Samuel. So I think he's primed and ready to score plus 100. You could do that straight up, Zoo. I think that's actually a pretty safe single bet too, with decent payout there. Another guy that I'm parlaying that is Derrick Henry. They're minus 105 to score a touchdown. We got the bruiser himself, man. I think he could be a decent one this week. Obviously, not a little bit less of a value play there. Saints, also a relatively tough defense, kind of a under-the-radar defense this year, especially with the easiest schedule in the NFL this year, which I did not know, and I'm glad that I picked their defense in my fantasy league.
Well, I picked up some guys in fantasy from the Saints.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think it's just Derrick Henry. He's just kind of a guy that even when he's having an off game, he's going to get the goal line touches pretty much no matter what. And with a struggling passing attack, he's bound to have one. Not every single game, but I would say the majority of the time. So pairing those two up, and then the final, I'm actually going with a. This is a little bit personal, hits home, but not in the way you guys are thinking. I'm actually going to pick A.J. Dillon here because he he absolutely gashes the Chicago
The
Bears.
Bears, yeah. I
Last
saw
year,
that.
week 1, he put up, I think, 80 yards on like 14 carries, scored twice. I'm pretty sure 3 out of his 7 touchdowns last year came against the Chicago Bears. Now, they have improved their defense. Is it light years beyond what it was last year? Not at all. And he does get the goal line carries, and he's honestly getting more of a workload this year with Jordan Love being there. I think they're going to try and use Aaron Jones in the passing game. We might even see some 2-back sets out of Green Bay. And he's plus 145 to score this week. Obviously, that's looking at historical. Zoo, I know that's not your favorite way to look at betting, but when you see these teams twice a year, you kind of know how they play and you know what works against them. And if you parlay all 3 of these together, you're looking at a plus 857 on FanDuel for all of them to score a touchdown this week. So you bet 5, bringing in a nice little $42. If you want to put 10 down, $43, give or take, you're pushing up closer to 90. So these are 3 guys that I'm looking at. Obviously, there are plenty others. I'm glad I did not prepare for Travis Kelce to score this week because he might not even see the field. So, those are the 3 I'm kind of looking at. I know it's 3 RBs. Wide receivers are a little bit harder to actually look in this front because they're reliant on the quarterback play, right? Whereas a running back, they can kind of get the ball, and as long as they're not fumbling it, they're going to continue to keep feeding those guys as long as it's working in a positive way. So I'm not always going to be picking RBs, but I think this week it is a safe bet. Kind of first week, we just got to see what some of these teams are looking like, see if these guys have aged at all, or if they're progressing in their careers, progressing in their workloads. And I think that's where the A.J. Dillon pick came from as well.
A.J. Dillon, huh? You're a flex guy, huh?
Absolutely.
Just a little rooting interest in there, even though it's against your Chicago Bears.
Exactly.
And if he's at the 1 yard line, you wouldn't mind the brother scoring a touchdown on your team.
You know what, Zoo? The final score is going to be 42-7, and that 7 is going to be from A.J. Dillon. That's what I'm hoping. As long as they're up.
That's hilarious.
It's funny, man. Rooting against your team, but for me, man, this week, man, my favorite bets in football is the spread bet. Because it gets a little even the odds, like obviously there's a team that's a little favorite, but man, it's fun to root for a dog just to cover the spread instead of just winning the game. And the team I'm going to is a city I will never go on vacation to, the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns, man. Right now, oh man, there are home underdogs. Yep. That's a little disrespectful. That's just saying the Cincinnati Bengals are just that much better than you we haven't seen a game yet, a fresh new season. So obviously I love taking underdogs in football, especially in week 1, because we don't know how all these teams stack up. Obviously we could look at previous seasons and project out this season, but right now everybody's starting from 0. We don't know how each team is. Like the history of these franchises right now. Obviously Joe Burrow historically has struggled a little against Cleveland.
A little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. Like Joe Burrow's, obviously, I'm taking that dude over Deshaun Watson any day of the week, but he's coming off an injury. So he might be a little rusty. And you're playing against the Cleveland Browns, which is a team that's a ground and pound team. And we get to see Nick Chubb in full effect right now. And this is why I want the Cleveland Browns to do: control the possession of the football. Control the football. Don't let Joe Burrow touch in. Joe Burrow's going to be a little rusty on the other side of the football, and just ground and pound with Nick Chubb and let that brother get fully unleashed right now as true RB1, because there's no more Kareem Hunt. And I think Nick Chubb is the pure best rusher of the football. And this dude going for 1,500, 1,600 rushing yards this year, man. That's what I believe that Nick Chubb can actually do this year. He's one of the most durable players in football. This guy's legs are like tree trunks, man, squatting 600 pounds. Every time I see that dude just squatting 600, like the bar is bending when that dude's squatting. So that dude is on a different level of strong. And I feel like he could carry this team. And I'm really, really interested to see how Deshaun Watson looks this year. And
what's the spread, Zoo?
2.5.
2.5. Okay.
2.5. So I'm just picking the Browns to win this game.
Pretty much, yeah.
So I'm picking the Browns to win this game at home against the Cincinnati Bengals, and I feel pretty good at it because I feel like they're going to go off to a quick start with Deshaun Watson, Nick Chubb, and Joe Burrow. That rust, baby, is going to take a 1 or 2 games, like a little last year too. The Cincinnati's Bengals. I remember the first couple of weeks,
it was short,
they struggled a little. People thought that last year was a little bit of a fluke with them making a Super Bowl run. Obviously, they bounce back in the later of the year, but I feel like a similar situation is going to happen again with Joe Burrow struggling and obviously with the injury. So, like, that's obviously a massive indicator of having rust. So that's what I picked this year, man. I'm locking in the Cleveland Browns of Ohio,
and I also think,
getting it done.
To your other points, obviously we need to see what Burrow's looking like. But also, has Deshaun Watson kind of gotten his feedback under him? Is he going to be playing?
He can't be any worse. That's all I can say.
Exactly.
He can't be any worse than last year.
And they still gave him a decent hard time, like you said, in the 2 division games last year. So this could be a good opening bet. I think it might be one of the more wide open, unfavorable spreads, I guess. When you're looking at like the Bengals, like they might be a little overvalued here. But man, it just seems like everyone's high on the Bengals so far. But I like that pick.
2 reasons, too, why I'm kind of siding with Zoo on that is Deshaun Watson can't be any worse. And 2, Cleveland, I think their defense, knowing that Burrow's, he's going to be playing in that game, but I don't think he's going to be 100%. And if you got Myles Garrett coming off the edge, like you might, there might be more blitzes and more different types of packages coming after Burrow, knowing he's a little gimpy. So, plus, I've been reading some intriguing stuff about Elijah Moore and how they're going to use him, not just as a receiver, like in end rounds and kind of some formations of him in the backfield with Chubb and on toss sweeps, which I think is really intriguing because, maybe he did that with the Jets. I don't really remember seeing that. I don't know if he did in college or not, but I saw some stuff on Twitter where they were kind of talking that up. So maybe it's just, Browns talk and they're just excited about getting Elijah Moore. But, maybe if that's a wrinkle that they use for their game plan against the Bengals, then that could be something the Bengals are not looking for, and then that could be a deciding factor in them winning that game. So yeah, that's going to be pretty much our segment. Every week, we guys going to give you those consistent type of bets, and hopefully you can cash out and get some money. So speaking of the NFL, Thursday night, defending champions Chiefs are going to be playing against the Lions. Like you said, we kind of hinted towards Kelsey being injured for that game, but one particular game we wanted to focus on was Monday night, correct? Against the Jets and the Bills. A lot of people, man, they're putting, I think, decent money on, Aaron Rodgers and his New York Jets, and for good reason, because he's got an alpha number 1. He just got Dalvin Cook. Got people on the Jets. I'm not even sure who the guy was, but he was basically saying, like, he's comparing that defense to the 85 Bears. So it's if you're going to be doing all this talking, that was actually a quote. I'll send it to you after the pod, but I saw that on Twitter. I was like, I don't even know who the guy that was saying that, but it's a lot of talking coming from the Jets, man, and for good reason, because like I just said, they got Rodgers. So, Josh Allen, I know they hear the noise. Him and Stephon kind of had a weird dynamic this whole summer workouts and kind of during the spring of just like, Stephon being irritated or whatever. But you still have those two, so you're going to always have a chance. So I kind of wanted to dive into this game and ask the guys, like, what are their thoughts, how this game is going to trend at Zoo. I'm going to start with you.
They're not going to lie, man. The Jets got me a little hyped. Me and P. Bush, man, watched a little Hard Knocks.
On
the last day, a little recovery day. Watched some Hard Knocks. Got a little Jets hype right now because Garrett Wilson, a.k.a. Devontae Adams 2.0, it is beautiful to watch. It's beautiful to watch. Obviously, they had Hackett back in the mix. So they're running the similar play calling. And just watching him run routes, it is shockingly similar how they look. It is shockingly similar. Obviously, the number. Yeah, the number, obviously, that just makes it even more similar. But the way he runs, the way Rodgers going to force feed him is going to be a beauty to watch. I'm really, really interested because the Jets last year, on paper, outside the QB position, obviously the most important position, they were amazing. Like the defense was awesome. Obviously, the running back, Breece Hall, your boy Breece Hall was balling out. Obviously, had a catastrophic knee injury, but obviously they got Dalvin Cook in the mix too. So obviously supplement Breece Hall, a little timeshare right now to get the knee a little more healthier. So don't want to overhaul. Put a full workhorse role on a guy off a torn ACL. So they got a guy in Dalvin Cook for a year, maybe be a little mentor, maybe a guy 50-50 carries in the beginning of the year. So he's that rushing attack because Aaron Rodgers recently in the past couple of years with the Packers loves rushing the foot. Like he always hands off the rushing attack. It's not more like Aaron Rodgers just chucking it every single time like a Mahomes or something. Like he utilizes that rushing attack a lot with A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. So I see a very similar method of attack with the Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook in that mix. And obviously you got a young guy in Breece Hall, and this guy's a lot more talented than your boy A.J. Dillon. So like this attack is going to be very, very interesting on the rushing attack. So I'm really interested to see that. He got his favorite man, Randall Cobb back, Alan Lazard. So pretty much it's the new is the New York Packers, man. That's what I'm watching. It is the New York Packers.
Yeah.
It is shockingly similar.
Hackett.
Exactly, Hackett, and then you got a guy in like Robert Saleh. I swear to God, this dude worships Aaron Rodgers. Like it's like watching Hard Knocks. I'm just like, this dude just like, oh wow, unbelievable. I'm like, this guy's the GOAT. I'm like, this guy is legit fanboying over his quarterback, like fanboy.
As he should.
Like he just like, man, I have Zach Wilson. I have Mike White. I had doing like the CFL or the XFL, whatever. Like he started like Joe Flacco. Like he had a rotation of quarterbacks that he finally got a guy that, okay, this guy's going to be at least a top 15 quarterback, starting quarterback in NFL. And you're getting that with a defense that's talking a lot of crap right now. Like, let's see if they live up to that hype. Obviously, Sauce showed what he did as a rookie. So they have a lot of young talent that they have right now. You add in a guy at Aaron Rodgers. I am so interested to see him against a Buffalo Bills team, which is going to be a hell of a test. A hell of a test.
Great opener.
They could get humbled real quickly. Because if this Buffalo Bills team is a team that could drop 30, 40 points easily with Josh Allen behind the helm, throwing it to Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis out there as deep threats. So I'm all aboard the Jets hype train right now. I'm real interested to see them. But I got to give it to the Buffalo Bills to get the dub because I just think they're still the better team. And their track record of the last couple of years of winning 13 games, it's not easy. Having that sustained success, and the team, obviously, no Von Miller, which is that defense is not going to be obviously led by Kai, who's a future Hall of Famer. So the defense side of the football is not as good as I want, but offensively, like the Jets are going to have their handful. But I'm going to still take the Bills by a field goal over the Jets.
Okay, on the road too. I respect that. I mean, and we saw, and I'll play devil's advocate here, Zoo, because I do have the Jets in this game. I think.
You do.
And you want to know what I think it is? The Jets fan base has something to be hype about for the first time since like the Chad Pennington days. If you're an old NFL fan, you probably remember that name, man, when they were kind of running the AFC East there along with the Patriots in that late 90s, early 2000s. Curtis Martin, man, they are hungry for a good team. And man, we saw Zoo and Hard Knocks, man. Those fans were like, Rodgers, you better not be retiring in the next year or two because you finally gave us some hope. Unless he just brings him a Super Bowl in his first 2 years, maybe, if depending on how long he continues to play. But yeah, man, I completely agree with you. I think the Bills offense, it is a juggernaut, right? Especially in the passing attack. We've talked for years about the rushing attack in Buffalo. And now they got their potential guy.
Good guy.
Brothers. James Cook and Dalvin Cook, man. That's another great little storyline. But the overarching storyline for me is that you kind of got two backfields that are quote unquote by committee, right? One of them is obviously due to injury, and the other one is kind of I would actually argue, Zoo, that it's very similar to the Packers backfield in James Cook and Damian Harris kind of being the bruiser, goal line guy, James Cook kind of being in that more Aaron Jones role. Obviously not at the same skill level from what we have seen, but he also had some great yards per carry last year, almost pushing 6 yards per carry. James Cook, that's who I'm speaking of. And then we obviously know the Breece Hall Dalvin situation, right? I think it is good to hear that Breece is not going to be on a quote snap count, but I think it is media wise, it's an indirect snap count because he is still sharing snaps with Dalvin Cook, right? So they really are keeping him on a snap count, but they're saying he is 100% healthy. I think that's just kind of a spin to say he's trending in the right direction, but he's still not ready to get the full workhorse. But that's like the polite way of saying he's still not fully there yet to be getting 20, 25 carries a game. So that is something to monitor if you are a fantasy owner of either one of those two guys, Dalvin or Breece, or if you were smart, picking both. It might be good to maybe not even flex one of these guys in week one just to see how they're kind of shaping out. But look, man, we know what Rodgers can do with Garrett Wilson, but he's going up against one of the better cornerbacks in the league in Tre'Davious White, who is out there to embarrass you. And then they got Jordan Poyer in the back, an all-pro safety, man. That secondary in Buffalo, you spoke about the D-line maybe regressing a little bit. That secondary is scary, and they've caused a lot of problems in years past and have arguably been kind of the anchor of that defense. And then on the other side, man, you look at C.J. Mosley at the linebacker. Zoo, we were talking about, he was on Hard Knocks watching the Jets. He is the leader of that team very quietly. You don't really see him talk that much to the cameras, but everyone listens to him. The man, I think, almost had 170 tackles last year. We know what Quentin Williams, they call him Q ball. That's what they call him, Q ball. That man,
You know what else they call him? Mike Evans calls him fat. That's what he calls him.
Yeah, Mike Evans called him fat. And he goes, man, for 300 pounds, I look good. And he's like, yeah, you do. But yeah, man, I mean, just an absolute monster there up front. You cannot have enough guys on your defensive line that you can rotate in and out to keep everybody fresh, keep those legs fresh, because we know what the Buffalo Bills can do, and they can do it fast, right? So this is a team that you have to match with intensity and speed. And I think the Jets are ready to. They got to back up what they're saying, right? But I do think that this team is legitimate. I think it will be interested. I am interested to see how Lazard is used. We obviously know the camaraderie that he has with Rodgers, and he is a big deep ball threat kind of guy compared to Garrett Wilson, who's obviously has the deep ball threat, but is an unbelievable wide receiver from the line of scrimmage to the 25 yards out. That's his prime time. Makes a couple moves and he can get out in the open and potentially score on a 60, 70-yard pass. But his route running is so good that he can get open that quickly, much like Devontae Adams, like we had seen back in his Green Bay days and continues to do in Vegas. So I think this is just going to be an absolute grind fest. These are the top two teams in the AFC East for me. I have two bets, one on the Bills winning and one on the Jets winning, kind of trying to hedge the two with my division winning parlays. And I do think at this point it is a bit of a pick 'em between the two, but we got to see what they look like, especially. And it is good to see in week one how they face off with each other. But I am giving a field goal slight edge to the Jets, and that is purely based on how I think it's going to be a ridiculous crowd in New York, especially since it's September, so they still have good weather in New York Zoo. There's no worry about it being too cold and people kind of getting it. They are going to be hyped. They're going to be ready. And they're going to be playing at Jet Life Stadium, man. That's what Aaron Rodgers likes to call it. So, I don't know, man. I think it's going to be a great game to watch and an unbelievable schedule by the NFL. Shout out first Monday Night Football game. It could be a future AFC powerhouse matchup for the next year or two.
Didn't the Jets, Fireman Ed, isn't he like part of the whole Jets little crowd, like the mafia thing? I think there's a guy named Fireman Ed. I remember I had a roommate in college. He was a massive Jets fan, and he was just always talking about how dedicated, like, every fan base has their guy or their like type of mascot that's like they think is better than the other one. But he just kind of explained his story, and for me, I was just listening because I could care less because I'm not a Jets fan. But I remember him being so passionate about that story. It was just like, to your point, I think New York is going to be rocking, and for good reason, because Aaron Rodgers is there. I brought up earlier, and I did a little quick research on the guy. His name is DJ Reed. When I referred to him talking about the Bears, and he says, and I'm very confident, and this is as I quote, or as his quote, I'm very confident. He said, I think we have the potential to be the best defense in the NFL. And honestly, I think it could be historical. Not the best defense in the league, but I think we can have a historical defense in the league like the 85-86 Bears. I
think he's the second corner behind Sauce, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
He's the guy opposite of Sauce. And he's good. He's good.
Very good, but
that's a lot. 85 Bears, man.
I hate when people do to me, it's like when you talk like that, it's so much pressure. I mean, and they're NFL players, so they don't really care about the pressure. Because usually if they don't end up doing what they're supposed to do, they don't have to answer for it. But the confidence I guess you can pull out of that is like he feels like this team on defense is just going to be unstoppable. And for me, the main matchup I'm looking at is Sauce versus Stephon, because Sauce last year, all pro. He was a guy who it did not matter who you put out there. He was bothering them. Him and Surtain were kind of neck and neck. I still kind of feel like Surtain probably, or not Surtain, but Sauce is a little bit better. But that's just like by a little bit. But I'm going to be very interested to see how Stephon handles that matchup. Because for me, with the Bills offense, we know Stephon's the number one. Gabe Davis is kind of hit or miss to me. We're going to be, just being totally transparent. I'm going to be interested in Kincaid and see how he is used, because there's been a lot of talk about Dawson Knox being the inline tight end and him being in the slot. And if you're telling me Dawson Knox is going to be in the slot, then I'm going to be very, very, very excited for my fantasy team, because that means he's going to be getting a lot of targets. But I do think the Bills defense, we know they're going to come. They're going to be very, strong. They're going to be swarming, doing what they're supposed to do is beginning of the year. But
Yep.
The Jets defense, man, they're not the 85-86 Bears, but I do think they have a chance to be historical in terms of this year and this season. Because the simple fact that if Aaron Rodgers is who Aaron Rodgers is and he's driving them up and down the field and they're scoring, that's going to put pressure on other offenses. And when that happens, I think when it comes to the Jets and the strength of their defense is on that kind of front seven, even though Sauce is a menace and that other guy, DJ Reed, is a nice number 2, I still think that front line with Quentin Williams, Jermaine Johnson, I think Carl Lawson's there. I'm not sure. He may have been off or whatever. But they got a lot of deep and talented pass rushers. And if you're telling me Rodgers is getting them up and down the field and scored, man, that's just going to let them pin their ears back and go after the opposing quarterbacks. Now, in this particular game with Josh Allen, you may not want to do that because he can hurt you with hit his legs. But I'm also going to be interested to see if Josh Allen kind of dials it back and doesn't try to be this fullback, old school type of guy and taking on hits, because at some point those hits are going to take a toll.
Yep.
And you are the franchise. Like, for God's sakes, you're on the mag cover. So everybody knows you are very important to the Bills' future. So I do want to see him still be aggressive, still run around, still do what he do. But, yeah, let's slide a little bit, get the ball to Stephon, get the ball to your playmakers. Like I was just saying earlier, get it to Dawson Knox. I mean, not Dawson Knox, but Dalton Kincaid. Get it to guys that can make plays for you. And I think if he does that, the Bills have a chance. But I'm kind of with you guys. I think just the overwhelming feeling with this particular matchup is I think the Jets are going to come out. I'm very high on the Jets. I like them a lot in the AFC East, but Buffalo's they're gonna have something to say about it. And I always feel like in this kind of year, because Buffalo's been so close and their games have been heartbreakers, that this would probably be the year they just I'm not saying everyone's down on them, but it's just so much hoopla around the other teams. Like Miami's got their skill guys, Tua, all that stuff, and New England, I mean, they're an afterthought, but basically the pretty girl on the block now is New York and the Jets. And, maybe the Bills take that personal, but I'm siding with the Jets, man. I think Rodgers is going to be that connection with Wilson, man. It's going to be serious. It's going to be
scary,
serious.
dude. It's scary how they've become on the same page so quickly. And I think they both talk so highly. I mean, on we're gonna keep bringing up the Hard Knocks, but it's so cool to watch a team. Free plug. It's so interesting to watch a team that's got this much hype on Hard Knocks. Because we've seen teams like the Arizona Cardinals who, obviously yes, they do have good talent, right, on Hard Knocks, etc. But to see a team that is bringing in one of the most legendary quarterbacks we've seen in the last 15 years, and at his they all just gawk over him, right? They're like, thank God he's on our team. The defense half the time is like, thank God this man's on our team, so we don't have to play against him ever. And it's just a testament to how much respect he has around the league in the players aspect. We can talk about his media presence all we want, but the people that he plays with usually seem to like him. Yeah. But he will be hard on you, and he will call you out because he expects perfection from. It's very much the Jordan mentality, man. He expects perfection from himself, and as an extension, everybody that plays with him. So I think, if anything, it'll only be themselves that cause their downfall, right? It'll kind of be being in their own head.
Injuries.
Injuries is a given with any NFL team. But when you have this much hype around you before the season's even started, the only thing that you can really do is shoot yourself in the foot, whether that be with injuries, which is a little bit out of your control, but how you react to situations is what you have to be able to compose, right? So it'll be. I think it's gonna be a fun team to watch, and like I said, hell of a Monday Night Football game to kick it off.
The NFL knows what they're doing, man.
Well, of course,
man. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They've been around
the block. They even got the Cook
NFL
brothers.
Script, man. The NFL script.
They even got the Cook brothers playing each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's just another little small storyline that's interesting.
It's gonna be a nice photo op. James Cook too. That's it. I think one of y'all brought that up. That's going to be interesting too, to see if he can take over that, because that's really the only thing that's missing from their offense is a strong RB1. Like, I think if they get a strong RB, and Cook is going to be to be determined because of it, just his build. Yeah,
his build is just not the prototype. He just looks too light and too small. Like,
his brother or his older brother is like more of he's a bigger guy. But I think Cook is a better pass catcher, so that's probably why. But that could put the Bills, even if Cook is just affected the first 2 downs, if he's going crazy in the first 2 downs and becomes like a not pro, but at least like a Pro Bowl type of player, then we're going to be talking about the Bills probably running away with that division because I like every other aspect of their defense or offense and defense. So, but yeah, man, NFL is here. I'm excited. Like I said, they're starting out with the Chiefs and the Lions on Thursday night. So you guys make sure to tune in to bullheaded_pod for all the updates with that. Prayers to Travis Kelce, selfishly, because I have him in my 8-man league.
I will say this, Sean. They announced a little while ago that it's not expected that he will be missing that much time. I think Zoo may have mentioned that in passing.
Mm-hmm.
But they just can't take an MRI or X-ray him, so they'll actually have an answer for us tomorrow, end of day, supposedly. So
low gamesmanship, huh? Low gamesmanship with the Detroit Lions.
Because they got to put in the injury report right before their game, right? Just based on NFL rules, right? So, you know what? I'm expecting him. He's already on my bench. But that ain't going to be the case in week 2. Fingers crossed, man. Prayers up to Travis.
Facts. The cool thing, like I told people, it's in the 8-man league, Cole Kmet season. So I need Cole Kmet to go off just for a week, maybe 2. And guess what? We'll be just fine. And I'll have Kelce back in the lineup. So
there you go.
Make sure you guys are tuned in to our TikTok as well, Bullheaded864, our YouTube, Quantrell Knows. Like I said, NFL is back. College football had a crazy first weekend. So I am covering that as well on all the social media platforms. You can also listen to us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple. And for me, Zoo, and Peebush, we are out.